Welcome to Architrave Gaming. I'm the Archmaster. So today I am going to give you a taste of a service I offer completely free of charge. I love doing this. So I put out a YouTube short, and I'm like, hey guys, I like world building. I like fantastic world building. Tell me your world. If you have something that's a little boring, a little mundane, or you just want ideas to spice it up, tell me about it. Give me a prompt. I will make this, as much as I can. I will make it as fantastic as I can. I will give you ideas, right? I've had 2 people comment so far, and I've given them stuff. So I thought, might as well tell y'all, I might as well give you an example of what I do, so that y'all can comment in the comment section of this video and be like, hey, here's my world, here's a prompt. How can you make it fantastic? And I can keep doing it because I love doing it. I enjoy it so much. Again, completely free. It's not the service, it's just something I like doing. So the first comment here is by Soulmere42. And he said, challenge accepted! A post-apocalyptic world of desert city-states, caravans, raiders, and dust storms lasting weeks. A remnant ancient civilization survival group, who are a sort of elves, occupy the upper class and levels of a cliff city, kept safe from the geopolitics of pillage by providing ancient healing to anyone in need. One day, a young apprentice finds her father missing and discovers a compassionate, I think he meant to say a compass, and a navigational equipment hidden away in his office. Any ideas coming out of this for you? BR and GL, glad someone linked your channel. All right, so this was my response. This might be a long video. I mean, you probably already can see the length of the video. I said, ooh, nice to have another one. All right, first off, I often think in terms of cosmic forces and energies like law and chaos, freedom and power, etc. I find it cool when these energies are naturally imbued into the world and have strong effects. Remember, I'm offering ideas for world building, not specific adventures, but maybe I'll be able to tie something in. All right, I really like your idea about the ancients surviving by offering ancient services that people don't have access to anymore, especially healing. Contrast brings meaning, and there's plenty of contrast there. Contrast of the new versus the ancient, the violence of the desert, and the healing of the city, etc. What makes a good setting is if it has a lot of conflict waiting to explode. This is commonly called a powder keg setting. So let's add some powder to this barrel. We have a few interesting things we can spruce up here, making them more fantastic and making them points of conflict. The mega sandstorms, the nature of the elves, the conflict between upper and lower levels of the cliffside city, the nature of healing magic, the trials of travel, and the dangers of the desert. All right, let's go. The mega sandstorms. What if forces of stasis, which come from the concept of order/law, affected part of the pre-apocalypse world? What if there are these big mile-wide pockets of stasis that catch most anything that moves through it? So you have your sandstorms moving around, and when they hit one of these, the sand that hits the pocket just gets caught in it and floats there permanently. That means over time, the sandstorms get smaller and these pockets of stasis get denser, full of sand. It gives an interesting point for conflict too. There can be people trying to use these pockets of stasis and shoving their enemies into them, or siphon whatever magics or energies made them so long ago, and make magic items that can be used to freeze things in motion, people or even whole cities, like villains. Maybe there are some who are trying to eliminate these stasis fields because they view them as dangerous, but perhaps these stasis fields were actually purposely created before the apocalypse to protect something important underground, perhaps the equivalent of nuclear missile silos. So it's like you have a vault or something, and then the stasis is over it so no one can access it. The ancients had these strongholds and dungeons built in cliff faces or underground, and they put these stasis fields on top of them so that no one would be able to get down and access them. Maybe some ancients are still there, in the equivalent of Fallout vaults. All right, the nature of the elves. You said sorta elves, so I'm going to go with that. Maybe these are some of the ancients who were experimenting with stasis magic, and they imbued a bit of it into their own bodies, making them age much more slowly. So they appear to be elves, but they aren't really, but they are really the same old race as everyone else. I'm just assuming human, or whatever you want it to be. Just altered. Maybe this longevity effect must be maintained by visits to stasis fields, recharging their own internal stasis energy. Maybe the ancients send out one of their own each year to bottle up a bunch of stasis and bring it back to them. Maybe they are too afraid to leave their cities, so they hire/force one of the lower class citizens to do it, but they don't tell them exactly what they're doing or why. Maybe this is what the young apprentice's master was out doing, or father, whoever it was. Maybe there are the descendants of a different group of ancients that wanted access to the stasis magic so they could survive the apocalypse, but the first group didn't share. kind of like one group having access to fallout shelter vaults and not letting anyone else in. So the descendants of the group that weren't let in, that had to survive the wasteland on their own, seek to destroy all stasis magic so that the elves are forced to bear the burden of age the way everyone else is. Maybe they would age rapidly and start to decompose painfully. At least that's what they hope. All right, player engagement. This can give a chance to the players when they find out that the master was promised a share of the stasis magic if he succeeded, and anyone who breathes the stasis magic will also receive the main benefit. This can provide a choice to the players when they find this out. It's like, it's easy to hate the upper class until you get an opportunity to become one of them. Then a lot of people reconsider. Might be an interesting moral choice for the players. It's like, oh yeah, the elves, they're all mean. It's like, but I could become immortal like them if I bring this back. Choices. All right, conflict between upper and lower city. There's conflict, but also cooperation and mutual benefit here, which is why there hasn't been a civil war already. The lower city has to deal with raiders, sand monsters, and getting hit with sandstorms or stasis whirlwinds, which are stasis magic creeping along and catching whatever is in its path in a permanent stasis. The elves above are spared all that, but there is the agreed upon social contract that requires they heal everyone of their wounds inflicted by raiders, and, curiously, also lift the stasis effects when they happen. Opportunities for player interaction. This is a hint to the players that the elves have something to do with stasis magic, the fact that they can lift it when it happens. And they have some knowledge and control over it. Maybe some people in town are suspicious of them, but they don't want to ask too many questions or bite the hand that feeds them. Maybe in times of great danger, when the elves themselves are threatened, they can actually expend some of their own personal stasis energy to create a stasis wall on the outside of the city, keeping raiders and monsters out. Maybe this has only happened once, and it's kind of an urban legend, but it's a cool bit of history for the players to uncover, which hints at future revelations. All right, next, the nature of healing magic. We're about halfway done, a little less actually. Don't you just love it when you subvert expectations? You can't do it too much, but it can be fun if used once in a campaign. When I think of healing, I think of sunlight, goodness, law, and order. What if regular healing magic just doesn't work at all after the apocalypse, the aforementioned stuff? Maybe the elves are using some facsimile to mimic healing magic, but it has some hidden cost, or even better, dire consequences later down the line. We have two approaches here. We can tie it into their stasis magic, or we can give them access to a different type of power, just so the whole setting doesn't have a one-note theme where everything's about stasis. Hint, hint, later I actually combine the two. All right, the version of stasis healing. Stasis magic could be used to stop wounds from progressing, halt entropy, staunch bleeding, etc. But you know how at the top we mentioned stasis was descended or derived from order? It's like a child concept from the concept of order. So maybe they found a way to upcycle one level up and use some order magic to heal, resetting bones and arteries and blood to where they ought to be in their rightful place so they return to an orderly form. All right, or alternatively, something like a mind flayer brain in a jar. My next thought is some being or artifact that have access. My next thought is some being or artifact they have access to that lets them heal. Perhaps the being is the equivalent of a brain in a jar, or perhaps some de-winged dragon or elder brain mind flayer in a jar or something. It doesn't have a lot of power on its own, but they serve it and perhaps give some sort of sacrifices to it for its service. Maybe it's just an artifact or a jar of endless healing potions that they keep secreted away in a back room somewhere. But the healing also steals years of your life away. That's that dire consequence down the line. The elves don't tell anyone this, that it steals years of your life, and they just keep getting hailed as the healers of mankind whenever healing is required. Maybe those years of life that people lose are somehow siphoned to the elder brain in the jar. Maybe it's the thing that actually maybe the elder brain is the thing that actually creates the potions. The elves bring regular water or maybe blood or something to it, and the elder brain uses its psionic energy to turn it into healing potions. Maybe the elder brain / mind flayer is growing a new body with all those lost years, pulling years from people and converting them to real flesh for itself through psionic flesh weaving. Maybe those people who have received healing start to have visions or nightmares of the elder brain. Ooh, more little hints. Maybe there are two different city-states, and one uses healing like this, and the other has found a way to harness stasis magic and use it for healing. So you can use both, just different city-states in the desert. All right, the trials of travel. We're on to the last two. And these are my favorite, actually. The dust storms are cool, of course, inhibiting vision and mobility. Maybe you have to have a special kind of rebreather or gas mask equivalent so you can survive the sandstorms, and the gas masks have to be replenished with silver dust to restore the filters. Or else you have to find some underground dungeon and wait it out. Or maybe they're like underground tunnels to like get around dust storms. It's like some dust storms can be like in one place when some are moving, and some are like going up and down, and some like disappear and come back. Like lots of variety there. Maybe this is the primary reason that people go into dungeons and clear them out of monsters and put their loot there. It's the only place safe from the storms on the surface. A cool point of conflict and a reason for players to go in there, and it also justifies the existence of dungeons in the world, and dungeon delving and why there's treasure in them and monsters and all that. Everyone's hiding out in dungeons to get away from the surface. Of course, your surface can be like Mad Max. It can be as scary or wild as you want. It's up to you. When the dust storm is blowing against you, you travel more slowly, and it's hard to breathe, and it's best to find a dungeon. But when the dust storm is traveling in your direction, it increases your speed. Maybe people make gliders or wear special desert clothes made of desert glass or made with desert glass, formed by lightning strikes, and it lets them float on the winds of the sandstorm, and lets them reach the floating mountains that follow the sandstorms and always remain high up, and no one ever knows the floating mountains are there because they're obscured by the sandstorm. Opportunities for player interaction. It would be really cool when the players have a glider or wear the special kind of clothing, and then a sandstorm hits them and they start lifting upward, and they find a big desert cliff plateau, like a big floating mountain, at the top of the sandstorm. They never knew it was there. And maybe these floating mountains are the things that are actually causing these wild sandstorms. I was making this all up as I went, so it's like, yeah. And the players can go up there and direct the sandstorm where they want, attacking their enemies if they wish, or moving some sandstorms out of certain places that they normally sit, thereby revealing new areas. Maybe they can turn them off entirely, and they make it their objective to fly up to each of these floating plateaus and turn off each storm. Maybe when that happens, all of the plateaus fall to the ground and the storms are permanently gone, never to be restarted. And maybe that awakens the dwarves or sand dragons or sandworms, or another powerful creature that was normally trapped underground because of the sandstorms, but is now free to roam and pillage. Maybe this was actually what caused the apocalypse, this group of sandworms. That's the example I settled on. Maybe the ancients built these floating mountains and gave them sandstorm-producing engines, or magical effects or whatever, to keep these creatures underground because they had nearly wiped out the ancients. There might be a group of ancients sitting in their vault, monitoring the surface through scrying orbs, and when they see the PCs start to turn off the sandstorms, they deactivate their own stasis field above their underground vault, and they come to the surface and try to stop the players, or inform them of what's really happening and what the storms are for. Maybe once that stasis field is deactivated, it can't be restored, so now raiders and other city-states find out that that stasis field that was above their vault has been turned off. And so, driven by curiosity, each city-state or faction sends a contingent of soldiers or people to investigate the area, gathering its unharvested resources, which is actually an interesting idea because all of the stasis fields would probably have lots of green trees and greenery and resources and whatnot that everyone else doesn't have because they were kept in stasis and weren't devastated by the sandworms or the sandstorms. So whatever trees and greenery and whatnot were in there are still there. And so like it's a cool, not quite foreshadowing, but it's like, you're walking through the desert and you just see this place of just perfect greenery and it's all lush and happy and everything's fine. Then you're like, yeah, there's food, there's fruit on the tree, it's been there for years in total stasis. I wish I could have that. Oh well, and you look at the rest of the wasteland and it's just a desert, right? It's like that contrast, and then when the stasis turns off and that's accessible, like an apple in a desert, people would just like rush to it, right? It's like, cool. It's like world building. All right. Let me find my place again. Lots of all right, cool. Right, so driven by curiosity, they go there and try to find out why the stasis field's turned off. And then they find the entrance to the vault. They're like, what's this? And of course, the people that just exited the vault blame the party for for the fact that they were discovered. and they demand they help defend the vault from these other groups. But the party might already have relationships and alliances with certain groups, or enmity and rivalry with others. Lots of opportunity for interesting choices and major conflict here. You can also have interesting ways to move around the desert. The whole desert can be super windy, and there are these wind currents. Remember, we're still on dangers of travel, the trials of travel. All right, interesting ways to move around the desert. The whole desert can be super windy, and there are these wind currents that run along the ground and through the air, almost like rivers. And people walk along these and use sand skis and sand surfboards and chariots with like sails or something essentially like a parachute to drive them along on these currents. Maybe there's one group that has actually tamed a sandworm and rides them into battle, or there's a whole nomadic settlement on the back of a sandworm. Maybe it goes underground, maybe it just stays on the surface, who knows? Maybe there's a dead one and people live on it or in it, and like, a little foreshadowing. It's like, oh yeah, giant sandworm here, I wonder, like, players may not think that's anything special, but it's like, and then you reveal 20 later, or maybe 12. All right, sandworm, blah, 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 on the back of the sandworm. Maybe people ride sandy versions of owlbears or lizards or other creatures, and they move super fast through the desert, almost as fast as cars in Mad Max. And as they're fighting each other, being pursued by raiders and fleeing, and all the cool stuff that you can get up to in a post-apocalyptic desert, you have to avoid pockets of stasis by looking out for bits of sand and other material suspended in midair. And you're looking for gusts of wind to boost your speed, but avoiding gusts of wind, like you see, desert whirlwinds and stuff. Avoiding gust of winds that would knock you into stasis, or off cliffs, or cacti, or any other natural hazards, but stasis would be bad. Blah, blah, blah. Other materials suspended in midair. You're looking for gusts of wind to boost your speed, and you want to lead your enemies into whirlwinds or sandstorms or stasis fields. Lots of fun and danger to be had traveling the desert. So there's like a whirlwind pushing up, and you go into it and you like fly up. You probably wouldn't be able to do this on graded combat much, but like you could probably homebrew some way to like make chase scenes and travel and stuff. Like everyone's on chariots and skis and sand surfers chasing each other. I imagine Treasure Planet solar surfing, but just like on the sand, driven by the wind and probably really cool for a video game. May not work so well on tabletop, but still, it's an idea. You can describe it. All right. Lastly, the dangers of the desert. You can, of course, use all the desert creatures in any monster book you find. You can have desert elves and gnolls and maybe a sand dragon and all sorts of things. But you can also reskin a lot of things and make them desert themed. Desert orcs, desert dwarves, desert merfolk that swim through the sand and are particularly fond of stealing silver from any passersby. And silver is important because you need it for your filters, so I'm like, they hoard it. Easily avoided if you don't carry silver, but that's a lot of treasure you're passing up. Gold is pretty rare, and if you have it, you make yourself an even bigger target for the raiders. Plus, you need silver to replenish your sand mask filters. Hard choices to be made in the desert. Exactly. Good world building gives you choices, hard choices. The players feel like, I'm here, I have to make a choice, that everything depends on me, it's on my shoulders. That feels wonderful. All right. Opportunities for player interaction. This is the last section. And then, of course, you have to have the occasional sighting of a sandworm. Maybe just a rumble in the earth at first, and then they hear about a caravan not arriving on time, not arriving at all. Then the party sees some movement of the ground, and maybe a sandy brown shape just poking up over the surface and coming back down. And then, of course, an actual encounter with a sandworm. This way, they know that at least one exists, and it's great foreshadowing for when they either learn about the sandworms from the vault dwellers that emerge, or when they turn off all the sandstorms and a dozen sandworms come out of the ground and start swarming everywhere, and they've reactivated the apocalypse unknowingly. Oh, I played Outer Wilds. If you've played Outer Wilds, then you know what I'm going for here. It's give them the world, let it be totally static, let them discover it. Don't hold their hand, don't tell them anything, let them go and find it. Let them push buttons and turn off things and let the consequences come. Let it be real. Don't hold their hand, don't give them objectives, don't tell them what to do. Let them do what they want. It's so much fun to play in a game like that. You can also foreshadow this by having specific man-made dungeons in the world with hewn stone and all that, but then also have natural caverns and much larger parts of the sprawling underground. And the players are told never to go there because there are enormous creatures that haunt those caverns and will eat you up. And if they ever get curious and go down there, they may see or encounter a sandworm. So this way, you have several things that foreshadow the fact that there are sandworms underground. The players might even put 2 and 2 together and realize what's happening before you even reveal it, or really, before they reveal it with their own actions. Yeah, that was it. That was all the world building advice I gave him. There is another commenter later I'll get in another video. But yeah, that's the kind of thing with the prompt of a post-apocalyptic world of desert city-states, caravans, raiders, and dust storms lasting weeks. A remnant ancient civilization survival group, who are a sort of elves, occupy the upper class and levels of a cliff city, kept safe from the geopolitics of pillage by providing ancient healing to anyone in need. And then the whole apprentice thing. That's what he gave me. That's what I gave him. I love doing this so much. I really enjoy world building, in case you couldn't tell. So leave stuff in the comments. Tell me, give me prompts. Tell me what your world is like. And I mean, I'm not guaranteeing that I will absolutely respond to everyone and give you something like this, but I'd really like to. So please give me stuff, and I will try to spruce up your world and make it super fantastic. Anyway, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Feed the algorithm. I have Patreon for $5. My patron, Jack McCarthy, thank you for being my patron. And I have my own game system, Arches and Avatars, which is in alpha, technically. I'm still working on it. It's not complete at all. But you get to be part of the process if you join my Patreon, and you get to playtest and do all sorts of things eventually. Not right now, but join my Patreon. We have a Discord. You can discuss philosophy, world building, and my own game system. And who knows, I might give little sneak peeks and cool homebrew mechanics for my game you can put in 5e that might actually work. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Feed the algorithm. YouTube pleasantries go a long way. Again, thank you for watching all the way to the end. This is phenomenal. And yeah, God bless.